But no one thought, hey, we got to have Kellyanne Conway. It's not because she's a woman, it's because she's Kellyanne. No one thought we had to put Kellyanne Conway in the center of every single discussion in major campaigns. She just wasn't that person. She got into the Trump world and she realized that in a world of shamelessness, in a world where being a pathological liar is not exceptional, it's a minimum qualification, that she was actually good at that on TV, and she's good at blustering and good at bellowing. The weird thing is, you talk to people around the White House, she has no defined job. She doesn't do anything in the White House. She waits for the phone call to ring and, for Jake Tapper or Brian Stetler or whoever to have her on the air so that she can open her lie hole for 5 minutes and defend the president. He loves that.
One who got away, Sean Spicer.
Who? Look, Sean Spicer looked like a guy who was blinking out the word torture from the podium in Morse code every day because he hated it so much. The guy was miserable. Sean wasn't from the Trumpy side of this thing. He was a pretty procedural DC guy, good comms guy, nuts and bolts. Sean's not evil. He just let himself get, wrapped up in that thing. And, Priebus brought him into the White House, and when the first day the president is screaming that the guy doesn't have a good suit, you're like, oh, okay. You want him to lie that there were 47 trillion people on the mall, but you're worried about his suit. You could tell Sean Spicer, day one was a dead man walking. My book sold better.
You've worked for a lot of Republicans, as you've pointed out, including Rudy Giuliani. Now he is Donald Trump's TV lawyer. Do you talk with him? Is he the same Rudy Giuliani?
He is. I haven't spoken to Rudy in quite a while now, for reasons that may be obvious. But I will say this, and I know Rudy has a very mixed perception in the public. I went to work for him in his 1997 re-election race for mayor, where he had turned the city fundamentally around in terms of jobs and the economy and public safety. And there were some rough things about that. But the analogy that I used at the time, and I still sort of think of today, Rudy was Batman, okay? Batman sometimes does some ethically shady stuff. Batman sometimes works outside the boundaries of the normal things. But he's working for the broader good and security. That was the Rudy I knew. And the Rudy that on 9/11, when there was no other leadership in the country for a few hours, when he stood there and spoke extemporaneously about what was going on and what they were doing and how they were trying to save the city. Mm-hmm. If Rudy at that moment had dropped down dead, he would have been a national hero that we would have talked about for generations. And unfortunately, what he has done at this point in his career is entered Trump's orbit, and all those other things will now be footnotes, and what will be remembered is this horrifying performative TV lawyer act in defense of an indefensible man. And it saddens me tremendously. There are a lot of like Rudy alumni that I've talked to over the last several months, and all of us are just speechless and hurt. And it's hard to believe what has happened to him. But it has, and we have to face the fact that it has, and it is the corruptive and corrosive influence of Donald Trump.
Okay. Another question from the audience. Do you agree with Tom Nichols and other never-Trumpers that Democrats need to win the next 2 elections to destroy Trumpism and affecting the GOP?
Well, hell, I would take a Republican majority if they didn't act like a bunch of junior managers at a Trump golf course. I mean, I would love a Republican Party that would stand up and do their constitutional duty and uphold their oath of office, which is to be a co-equal branch of government. Mm-hmm. But they have decided that they work for Donald Trump, that they're his employees, not his peers, and that they are his servants, not his masters. And so I think we've reached the point where the only way we will have accountability for this president is if you have a Democratic majority. Now, do I love the policy outcomes from that as a conservative? No. Do I think Nancy Pelosi is actually going to get anything done and passed? No. The noise problem versus the signal problem here is what we have to face. The signal problem is that Donald Trump was fundamentally compromised by engagement with Russia, that Donald Trump is running an extraordinarily corrupt administration. I mean, more corrupt, more lavishly corrupt. It makes Grant look like George W. Bush. I mean, there's no degree to which these people won't sink to sell favor and influence in this country. I mean, we talked about this with the tax bill briefly. The coal industry basically submitted a menu with prices on it, and they gave Donald Trump the money to get what they wanted done for each of the things they wanted done. There are people who have already gotten, the first scorching. There are a lot of them who should burn. There are a lot of people who should be in jail because of the corruption of this administration. So I don't think you're going to get that with Devin Nunes, the Fredo of the GOP, covering up for this president. And these guys, for partisan ends, looking away from a Russian intelligence and influence operation that seeks, to this very moment, to destroy our republic. It is a form of war in the modern era. It's to the left of the boom, but it is still a form of war, and they look away from it to protect Donald Trump politically.
On that line, someone from the audience asked, if Robert Mueller has a smoking gun, if he's got some conclusive thing, he releases it, do you think Republicans will go along with?
I'll just get you right there. No.
Yeah.
Now, the magic number is in the Senate. You need 2/3. You ain't getting there. Not before 2020. It would take something so extraordinary and so damning that I can't imagine it wouldn't have leaked already for a majority of Republicans in the Senate, or not a majority, a sufficient number of Republicans in the Senate to vote to impeach and to convict, rather. I mean, the impeachment is not as dubious as the conviction. The impeachment's very difficult, but the conviction is extraordinary. It's an order of magnitude higher.
Someone asks, who owns Trump? Russians, Saudis, others?
Who doesn't? The guy's, I hate to be sexist and everything, but the guy's got a short skirt, and basically it's, hey, guy, I want a date. He is not a guy who for a moment looks away from money. Everything in his head is always about that one scorekeeping mechanism that he inherited from his defective relationship with his father, which is, are you making the bank? This is a guy whose venality is so unbelievably evident every single day. So yes, the Russians did a ton of business with the Trumps, a ton of business. And, these were stories we were pitching in 2015 to all those liberal reporters. And they would say things like, oh, well, get to me after the primary. It might be interesting later. And then during the general, we're pitching the same reporters. It's like, Hillary's going to win. It's okay. Don't worry about it. We won't follow that money. It's too hard, too complicated. Well, that stuff is emerging. A lot of that data is out there. Mueller's putting that case together. The president and his sons are lying when they say they have no business with Russia or Russians. The Chinese, obviously, and the Saudis, obviously, have become an ATM machine for the Trump family and Trump family enterprises and businesses, including Jared. So I think I think Donald Trump is owned. He's got many masters.
Will Trump win in 2020?
Well, I have some tough love for y'all now. If it's Bernie or Elizabeth, Trump's going to be president. I'm just going to tell you right now. Democrats need something that they're not thinking through right now. Right now, Democrats have a scorekeeping mechanism for presidential nominees. It looks something like this. Ideological match. So that means, are they right with you on guns, abortion, health care, whatever? Okay? Then you look at, can you put it together, raise the $1 billion, raise the money, do the campaign operational things, etc. Then it's, can we get through the superdelegate mess and all the Democratic internal blah, blah, blah? Get it backwards. The last thing Democrats have on their thing is charisma and engagement with the media. That should be way up here. They should look for a candidate who can be great on television. That's where this election is going to be fought. It's not going to be fought out in caucuses and in policy debates. It's going to be fought out of who's got the charisma to go kick Donald Trump's ass up and down the block every single day. Now, if that's Bernie, who is 9,000 years old, and who's going to go out and say, the millionaires and billionaires, it's not going to work. It's just it's just not going to be there. Elizabeth Warren may have many shining merits, but I think last week, that whole thing went over like a fart in a hurricane, and I don't think she's particularly great at politics.
Someone else.
So that's not me. Somebody's on the list.
Well, and I know it's not it's literally not your job to give the Democrats advice, but do you see Republicans who could do that kicking up and down the street of Trump?
Look, I think that I think that the Democrats need somebody who's a little bit out of left field. I think that a lot of the lineup right now is a little pedestrian and a little dull. And I'm just going to say this, and here we go. For the love of God, if you know Hillary Clinton, ask her to shut her damn mouth. You know what she should be doing? Raising money behind closed doors. She's great at it. But every time she's on TV, it reminds every one of those Trump voters that why they voted for him. A lot of Republicans who are not Trump fans were just slightly less fans of Hillary. Their hatred was just a little higher. And I don't think she does any good for the Democratic Party moving forward. I mean, look, what else do you use from the 1990s? You still have your flip phone? No. And the Clintons now are a dated product. And politics is about novelty in a lot of ways. Trump was a novel candidate. He was a new flavor. He was something exciting and different and transgressive. So I would recommend to the Democrats, don't feel like the "it's my turn" person needs to be the person. Look at who can be a great fighter against Donald Trump, who's great on television. That's where the battle will be fought. It will not be fought on policy questions. I know that I know people want the policy to be the way you make decisions, and that maybe would be a more robust democracy and a more robust republic. But P.J. O'Rourke once famously said the three branches of government are money, television, and bullshit. Now, which one of those is Donald Trump great at? All three. I would suggest the Democrats look for somebody who's great at least one of those.
Someone asks about if